Lower Abbey. Shrine. Convent Garden. Prioress House. Player says this door must lead into the rest of the convent. Not for me. Ah, feverfew. It always smells so fresh. Prioress House. Cecilia. Cecilia says God bless you, Andreas. Player says God bless you, Mother Cecilia. Cecilia says, is there something I can help you with? Option 1 of 2. I noticed that you took the sisters inside when I walked up with the Baron. Option 2 of 2. No. My apologies. Until later. Option 1 of 2. I noticed that. Cecilia says, what concern of it is yours? Player says it just seemed unusual. Cecilia says the Baron arrived to see the abbot and the scriptorium. It isn't appropriate for the sisters to interact with men. Option 1 of 3. Is that all? Option 2 of 3. The sisters interact with me. Option 3 of 3. I see. That makes sense. Thank you, Mother Cecilia. Option 1 of 3. Is that all? Cecilia says I have answered your question, Andreas. Good day. Player says good day. Cecilia. Convent Garden. Convent Garden. Upper Abbey. Convent Loquarium. Convent Loquarium. Player says a painting of Hildegard of Bingen, Mother Cecilia's favorite. Convent Garden. Player says the doors into the convent are locked to outsiders. Men, at least. Convent Garden. Matilda. Player says Tassing is lucky to have so much woundwort naturally growing. I had to buy it back in Nuremberg. Ah, the many-petaled cinquefoil. It grows so easily some consider it a weed. Matilda. Matilda says God bless you, Master Mailer. Player says Sister Matilda. How are you doing? Matilda says Mother Cecilia doesn't like us talking to men unless it's necessary to perform our work. Player says ah. Forgive me. Sorry to bother you. Matilda says thank you, Master Mailer. Player says the sisters certainly keep their garden well tended. Sophie. Sophie says God bless you, Master Mailer. Player says how are things going in the nun's kitchen? Sophie says I mean no offense, Master Mailer, but I cannot speak with men. Player says ah. My apologies. Sophie says God bless you. Player says and you as well, Sister Sophie. Player says Sister Gertrude dries and stores all of her herbs here. Pet Moss Fanger. Pet Moss Fanger. Pet Moss Fanger. Upper Abbey. Shrine. Upper Abbey. Lisbeth. Gertrude. Gertrude says God bless you, Master Mailer. How goes your work in the scriptorium? Option 1 of 2, very well thank you. Option 2 of 2 at. It could be better. Option 1 of 2, very well thank you. Gertrude says oh, then I guess you wouldn't be interested in the saffron Agnes Steinaueren received yesterday. Player says what? Saffron, really? Where'd you hear that? Gertrude says Sister Matilda saw her at the Albans. Maybe you can convince Prior Ferenc to get some for your yellows. Player says good to know. How's Moss Fanger? Gertrude says she's around here somewhere, hopefully getting to the baby rabbits before Sister Matilda does. Player says until later, Sister Gertrude. Gertrude says bless you, Andreas. Maybe I'll see you by the shrine of Saint Sasha one of these days. Lisbeth. Lisbeth says God bless you, Master Mailer. Player says a reliquary containing the hand of Saint Moritz, which is said to have once held the Holy Lance. Upper Abbey, Marguerite. Marguerite says God bless you. Brother Pierrot? No, wait, it's Master Mailer. Player says I thought you couldn't see, Sister Marguerite. Marguerite says during the day, I can see some colors. Player says how did you know it was me? Marguerite says you and Brother Pierrot both smell of the pigments you use. But you're taller, and you have another smell to you, like fish or burned almonds. Option 1 of 2. That's old linseed oil. Popular among the Italians, but Brother Pierrot doesn't use it. Option 2 of 2 I'm also much more handsome. Option 1 of 2. That's old linseed oil. Popular among the Italians, but Brother Pierrot doesn't use it. Marguerite says I'll ask Sister Gertrude about it. Player says how are Sister Gertrude's herbs coming? Marguerite says it's too early to tell. Most of them won't be grown until May. Still, working with herbs suits me. Player says have a good day, Sister Marguerite. Marguerite says God bless you, Master Mailer. Marguerite. Marguerite. Player says Brother Matthew maintains this shrine along with some of the sisters, who paint badges for pilgrims. Upper Abbey. Lower Abbey. Church. Church. Monastery Loquarium. Monastery Loquarium. Church. Church. Maps. Rudger says God bless you, Andreas. Player says has your voice yet recovered from Easter Mass, Rudger? Rudger says oh, yes. It was a bit of a strain, but a worthy sacrifice. Player says well, if the Lord could give us his all on Easter. Rudger says exactly. Have a good day in the scriptorium. Player says have a good day singing. Rudger says God bless you, Andreas. Cloister. Crit Tower. Matthew. Matthew says God bless you, Andreas. Player says how is the sacristy today, Matthew? Matthew says the same as yesterday. Does my vocation seem silly to you, Master Mailer? Option 1 of 3 absolutely not. Option 2 of 3 no I was just being friendly. Option 3 of 3 a little. Option 1 of 3 absolutely not. Player says even though I did not complete my theological studies, I understand the importance of the sacrist. Matthew says your understanding is appreciated. The treasures of the Abbey remain secure. Thank you for your inquiry. God be with you. Option 1 of 2 one more thing. I have a favor to ask you. Option 2 of 2 until later, brother. Option 1 of 2, Matthew says yes, Andreas. Option 1 of 3 I was hoping you could give me my pay for the latest manuscript early. Option 2 of 3 I'd like to collect my wages. Option 3 of 3 give me my pay. Option 1 of 3 I was hoping you could give me my pay for the latest manuscript early. Matthew says this isn't part of the agreement you made with Father Gernot. You will be paid on the completion of each additional manuscript you illuminate, not before. Option 1 of 2. I only have a few pages left, Brother Matthew. I'll finish them in the next few days anyway. Option 2 of 2. Can't you make an exception this once? Option 1 of 2. Matthew says then I think you can wait a few days to collect your wages. This abbey runs through mutual agreements, not haphazard payments. Breaking such contracts would cause undue trouble not only for Kearsarge, but for Tassing as well. Option 1 of 2 is that why Father Abbot has increased the taxes on the gardeners? Option 2 of 2. I understand. I won't press you further. Option 1 of 2 is that why Father Abbot has increased the taxes on the gardeners? Matthew says what is this about, Andreas? Option 1 of 3. The gardeners have asked me for their rent early, so they can pay their taxes to the abbey. Option 2 of 3. I would like to help the gardeners pay their taxes to the abbey. Option 3 of 3. Lie. I need the money, brother. I've made a grave error and I'm in debt. If I had the coin, I'd be able to pay it off. Option 1 of 3. The gardeners have asked me for their rent early, so they can pay their taxes to the abbey. Matthew says I see. Very well. Do not ask this of me again, Andreas Mailer. Matthew says here you are. I shall note this with Father Gernot and Prior Ferenc. Player says thank you, Brother Matthew. Matthew says humph. God bless you, Andreas. Sacristy. Player says all right, now that I've got my payment, I can give Clara the rent early. Option 1 of 2. I'll give it to her directly to make sure she receives it. Option 2 of 2. I'll put it on the table in the evening to surprise them. Option 1 of 2. I'll give it to her directly to make sure she receives it. Old Bailey. Norway, church, cemetery, church, Norway, Old Bailey, church, cloister, church, tower, church, tower, rib. Player says the foundations of the abbey were built when the Romans occupied this land, not long after the death of Christ. Church. Player says these tomb markers go back centuries, all the way to the founding of the abbey. Abbot Dietrich, from the height of Kearsarge's power in the 14th century. Those days have long passed. Investigate. Player says a lovely relief of the Virgin and Child. Shame it's hidden down here. That was it. Now what? Library. Player says hey. A secret entrance to the library. I'll have to remember this. Hey, a secret entrance to the library. I'll have to remember this. Library, church. Cloister. Cemetery. Player says the apple trees have only started to bloom. It will be months before they bear fruit. Player says a monument to the founder of the abbey. It's fairly recent. The funds were donated by her descendants. Okay. Animal pens. Large garden, cemetery. Large garden. Player says these cucumbers are growing quickly. I'm sure whatever isn't eaten will be pickled. Kitchen and cellar. Player says I wonder what recipes the brothers have for peas. Ferenc says God bless you, Andreas. God bless you, Andreas. Pet mirabilis. Gernot. Gernot says Andreas. Lord Gernot. Pen Rathwain. Large Cloister. Player says a Dance of Death mural. Father Matthias had it painted a few years before his death. It's beautiful. A Dance of Death mural. Father Matthias had it painted a few years before his death. Cloister. Large Player says when the brothers eat their meals, this is where the lector reads to them. Wojslav, Wojslav. Wojslav says morning, Andreas. How's living with the Gerdners? Option 1 of 3 it's great. They're a lovely family. Option 2 of 3 good. We get along well enough. Option 3 of 3 well, it's a room in a peasant home, so I can't expect much. Option 1 of 3 it's great. They're a lovely family. Wojslav says Clara is a good woman, and she looks after Big Jurg and Eva like they were her own. Player says they're both almost fully grown. Wojslav says true. I suppose it's less that they need looking after, more that she cares to. Little Ursula is in good hands. Anyway, if I don't see you around the abbey later, maybe I'll see you in Tassing tomorrow. Player says until then. Lucas. Lucas says hello, Andreas. Player says how goes it in the kitchen? Is brother Wojslav working you hard? Lucas says not too bad. Brother Wojslav is nice to me. It's Father Abbot and Brother Prior who make things hard. Player says how so? Lucas says I shouldn't complain. They just like their food a certain way and I'm not that good at cooking yet. Player says I'm sure Brother Wojslav will teach you well in time. Lucas says Brother Edok complains about his food, too, but he complains to Brother Wojslav. Player says what does Brother Edok know about food, anyway? He's from Cornwall. Lucas says I don't even know where that is. Player says it's a land to the west, across the sea, where all they eat is fish. Lucas says sounds miserable, but that's always what he complains about, the fish. Player says he just likes to complain, I think. Don't lose heart, Brother Lucas. You're still learning. Lucas says thanks. See you later, Andreas. Player says until later. Lucas. Lucas says hello. Refectory. Prior's house. Player says what is this? A Volvel? I've seen these before, in astronomy and medical tracks. What's this one for? 2 wheels. The top wheel has Greek letters and holes cut out to reveal Latin letters underneath, and the outer edge of the lower wheel is divided into 4 sections, each bearing an elemental symbol. Greek, Latin, and elemental symbols. It's obvious someone with occult interests fashioned this. A quarter turn of the upper disc aligns a different elemental symbol with the top of the lower disc. Option 1 of 2 given the number of letters and the size of the discs, there's enough space for a total of 4 versions of the Latin alphabet. Option 2 of 2 and that reveals a different set of letters underneath. Option 1 of 2 given the number of letters and the size of the discs, there's enough space for a total of 4 versions of the Latin alphabet. Player says I wonder what it's for. A cipher of some sort? I need to investigate more. This has to be connected to something else around here. Player says I still don't know the significance of the Volvel. It must be used to decipher something, but what? Player says pilgrim badges of St. Moritz. Endris makes these. Folkbert says good day, Andreas. Sabat. Sabat says God give you health, Master Mailer. Player says Brother Sabat. I am surprised to see you still here. Sabat says as am I, but I will be leaving soon, returning to Rome. I and my bishop regret that we could not reciprocate Father Rodolphe's generosity earlier. He showed much kindness to our priests at the Council of Constance many years ago. Player says will you remain in Rome, Sabat says that is up to my bishop, but I will miss these mountains in any case. You should travel to Ethiopia, Master Mailer, and see the highlands. God has blessed my home with a wondrous beauty. Player says I would love to, someday. I still need to return to Nuremberg and open my workshop. Sabat says yes, someday. Until then, if you are ever in Rome, I may still be around. Player says I would like that. Sabat says by the way, if you have some time in the next few days, it would be nice to share a meal with you and some of the townsfolk. Player says the townsfolk? Sabat says I am accustomed to strange looks, especially in rural places like these, but I have had kind words with the baker and his wife. Player says oh, yes, the Albans, Ulrich and Gret. Sabat says I offered to tell a story to the children and their mothers over a meal someday. Gret seemed excited about the idea, but I would be more comfortable if you were there as well. Option 1 of 2 I can certainly make time. Option 2 of 2 do you not eat here with the brothers? Option 1 of 2 I can certainly make time. Sabat says thank you, Andreas, I look forward to it. God give you health. Sabat. Sabat says God give you health. Closer. 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 Monitoring. Recovery. Keep movements. Century. Opening. Super